Okay, so this is a problem solutions essay in that category, but in this case, it's only problems. With the development of technology, children are now living in a world that's completely different from what it was 50 years ago. What problems does this cause for the family and society? Give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your knowledge or experience. We want at least 250 words. Okay, what kinds of things would be easy to talk about? Notice here too, before we even start, just says what problems does this cause for the family and society? Based on this question, what is the organization of our essay going to be? We're always doing 4 paragraphs. What are the 2 body paragraphs going to be about?
Telephones.
Sorry, what's the first body paragraph going to be about?
Oh, cows.
Is the question asking about causes?
A problem.
Problems.
Right. Problems for the family?
And problems for society.
Okay.
Yeah, and problems for society is our second body paragraph. Very simple organization. Okay.
When say cows, you need to bring solutions
Sorry? Do you need to?
because it's only about cows, right? So you don't need to write about solutions. No.
Yeah, do not write about anything they don't ask you about. You can't get any marks for it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, what are some easy things to talk about? Development of technology. Children are now living in a world that's completely different from what it was 50 years ago. What problems does this cause for the family? What's an example of such a technology that's completely different from 50 years ago?
Video games.
Okay, obviously. What kinds of problems do video games cause?
Like the children keep sitting at one place, so in that way the physical activity is decreasing day by day for them. Means all the time they are sitting at one place and playing at one place, so in that way their physical activity, they are not doing much of physical activity. Like
Good. And what's that phenomenon called? When people spend most of their time sitting, what kind of lifestyle is that?
sedentary
Lifestyle. That's a great
lifestyle.
That's a great phrase. Highlight that in green. You have to know that one. It's beautiful. Okay. Now, I want to caution you. 50 years ago, there was TV, right? So you can't just say that video games are resulting in a sedentary lifestyle, because the sedentary lifestyle didn't begin with video games, right? They were talking about couch potatoes 30, 40, 50 years ago. So you would have to say more than video games mean that kids are just sitting all the time.
Less family connection. Like they will not speak to each other.
Okay, but why? You have to talk about how this is different. What's changed?
Due to phones, and nobody is like
varieties of these games.
Okay, so let's call them devices instead of phones, okay?
Like kids doesn't interact with their family.
Right, but you're getting closer. You're getting closer. What is it about devices that's different from 50 years ago?
More attractive.
No,
that's not it.
Interactive.
Addictive.
That's not it either.
Yeah,
that's part of it, but that's not the most basic, obvious thing.
I don't hear Allah very well. Allah talk?
I said no. It's in Ivan.
Oh, sorry, I don't know what's wrong. Like,
Okay.
there's weak connection in my.
Okay, so everything that everyone has said is true, but that's not the big obvious thing that's different. 50 years ago, how many TVs did people have at home?
One.
One, and it had like 2 channels, right?
Network.
So what's the difference today? What the big obvious difference?
Amount.
100 of channels, and children
Variety
spend a
of
lot of
Social
time
media?
surfing them.
There
Network.
are more devices.
Everyone has one.
Everyone's got a TV in their room or a computer monitor that's the same thing. Everyone's got a phone. Everyone's got an iPad. That's different. That's completely different from 50 years ago. So what does that mean? What are the problems this causes for family? What's the mechanism?
No relationship. No relations.
Because
Less interaction with the family members because they keep isolating themselves and playing all the time on the monitor. In that way, they are not connecting much with the family members.
Maybe they stay more indoor than outdoors.
It's antisocial behavior.
doors, outdoors, I'm not sure how that's related, but the idea right before that was everyone is isolated. Right, because there's no need to share. There's no need to compromise. When everyone had one TV, okay, everyone was kind of a couch potato, but they were couch potatoes together. Right, a family of couch potatoes. Here, everyone is, I don't have a good vegetable metaphor, but everyone is,
Oh my God, cash potato. That was good one, yeah.
you know what I mean, right? Like everyone's just
Oh
in
my
their
God,
own
sorry,
room.
sorry.
Oh.
Couch
D-
potato
oh,
or
couch.
couch popcorn. No?
Alles war zu. Sorry, can you stop laughing?
Device. So one TV per household unless you were really rich.
Another thing is because like the role models, they see them in the devices, right? They don't really pay attention to the parents. I'm thinking the children.
That is true. The issue is, how is that different from 50 years ago when you had role models on TV? Right?
They were not, yeah, sorry.
No, I'm just saying, if you do that, you're creating extra work for yourself, because in addition to talking about how this is bad, you also have to explain how this is different from 50 years ago. Like, what are you going to say? And 50 years ago, we had just as compelling role models.
Yeah, you're right. It's just a percentage. Probably in the past affect, but now affect more. But yeah, it could be complicated to talk about that. Right.
So this is something you could talk about. It's the huge variety of media. This is another thing that comes up. What kind of media didn't exist 50 years ago?
Social media.
Okay, social media, for sure we can talk about that. What other kind of media didn't really exist?
Internet?
You know what's funny? I just looked it up.
Media can like
first Atari system was sold in 1977. I'm looking at first video game. Pong.
Tetris.
Pong, 1958. Okay, so the first arcade games began in like the 1970s, in the late 1970s. So we've got social media. We've also got video games that didn't really exist back then.
Internet.
Internet, yeah. I would pick one. Because this topic gets huge really fast. I would just pick one of these and talk about the problems for society. Okay, so what are problems arising from social media?
Facebook.
Yep, but what's a problem arising from that? Because we're only interested in what problems this causes for family and society.
Fake news.
Fake news, yep. What else?
Bullying.
We had lots of bullying in the old days too. Maybe even more.
Not socializing.
Yep, that's a big one. That's easy to talk about. Think of the things that are easy to talk about. This shouldn't be a challenge, like in terms of the ideas that we come up with. We're not trying to challenge ourselves.
Violence from video games.
That's a very easy one. Why is this one in particular, I think, is going to be really easy to talk about? Because think of even the first video games, how simple they were. Someone mentioned Tetris. What about Pac-Man? Tennis, like table tennis, right? Those are the first video games. What about the video games these days? What kind of words would you use to describe kind of the quality of the video games today?
They're terrible. They're violent. That's the only word.
Rebellious.
Sorry. I don't mean quality as in like you hate them or they're evil or they're good. I mean production quality.
High quality.
Yeah.
It's like
Well, they're real.
sophisticated.
HD quality.
Extremely
High definition quality.
High.
Quality. I would use words like realistic.
Realistic, yeah.
There are 3D video games also. Virtual games.
Virtual reality.
Virtual reality.
You can use words like immersive. What does immersive mean? An immersive experience.
You are inside the video game?
Yeah. Like, you can immerse someone or something in water, means you're completely inside it.
They can play with other friends or maybe stranger.
Multiplayer.
Multiplayer.
Online.
And difficult with parental guidance or supervision.
Be careful of straying off topic. That's a tangential issue. The fact that it's multiplayer is also kind of tangential, right? I think you can do really well with just these two parts. Like in the old days, what kind of violence did kids see on TV? It was like ridiculous cartoon violence, like Roadrunner.
Looney Tunes?
Sorry?
The Looney Tunes?
Yeah, Looney Tunes. Like Roadrunner, Donald Duck, just running off a cliff and falling down, getting blown up. Right? It's just ridiculous. What about today?
There's PUBG. I don't know much about that game. PUBG is a crime related something. Gun and all they use, shoot another partner.
Right, it's very realistic violence. let me just tell you about one incident if you want to talk about it. There was one case that really stood out for me in the United States. It was a school shooting many, many years ago. And these two boys, these two brothers, they were like, I think the older one was 12 years old. They stole their grandfather's .22 caliber rifle. They went to school. Both, like, the grandfather had a rifle collection. They stole a bunch of these. They each had a .22 caliber rifle. They went to school, and from quite far away, they shot, I believe it was 11 people, and they hit 9 of them in the chest or the head from a far distance. Okay.
How long was that, John?
This was at least a decade ago.
That's crazy.
Wow, that's
Okay. So they hit 9 out of 11 people that they shot in the chest or in the head. That is a higher percentage of accuracy than police and most soldiers can do. That was also the very first time they'd handled real guns.
Yes, you know what? Even, I always have the feeling, right? Even with my son, I grew up against this, and I don't care if he struggled at school. I don't care if he didn't have friends. I didn't allow him this. That's why my feeling, it's like, because I see it. I try, right? But I say, you're killing and you can feel it. I even try because I say, probably I'm too, close mind, right?
Most of video games are about violence.
Yeah, no. And then one day, well, I say, you know what? Better no, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. And plus, they're super expensive. Thank God I'm poor. So I couldn't buy them. And no, I'm so happy. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. Yeah.
So what does this lead to? How would you describe the attitude this creates? So we've got the phenomenon, we've got the very realistic, super violent video games. What does this lead to? What change?
Rebellious child.
Well,
Violent. No?
we're talking about violence, so you have to. What happens? Like your doctors, what happens when someone is constantly exposed to violence?
You become violent.
Or to be aggressive.
Could be aggressive tendencies we can talk about. Let me put it this way. Most people, when they see like an animal dying, they squirm. They're very uncomfortable, right? It's gross. How does a farmer feel about an animal dying?
No feelings.
No feelings. Now, when these kids are watching hundreds, if not thousands, of deaths per day, maybe per hour, right?
Yeah,
If you're playing a video game, you could be killing hundreds of people per hour.
no feelings.
Okay, so aggressive tendencies, I would say indifference to suffering.
Indifference to suffering.
But
You know
sometimes
what? Indifference or even sadics, they start like enjoying that. It's scary, really.
Okay, so there was one video game that came out several years ago that really had people up in arms. Does anyone remember the name of that video game?
Halo. Or before.
Grand Theft Auto, where you play like the bad guy. The hero is the bad guy. Right? I don't think that's something that existed in the past. Nobody would glorify That's another good expression. Glorifying violence or glorification of violence. Okay.
Yes, and naturally, good is good, and you know they're trying to be heroes. That was a normal thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's happening with the music?
Sorry, it's very hard to hear you, Ivan.
Adamant
That
behavior.
feelings are for another reasons too. Okay, we are focusing, give cows and
So the consequence. So this is the mechanism, right? I would say an increase in violence, increase in youth violence, is the obvious outcome of this. Right? You could talk about it the opposite way for a different question. Some people might argue that video games are a pressure valve, that the decrease in violence that we're seeing now is actually a result of video games. But that's a separate issue. It doesn't mean people are less violent. It means they're just enacting their violent fantasies at home in a video game rather than in real life. Right? So it doesn't mean people are less violent, it just means they've got an outlet at home for it. Right? But here, like, you've got school shootings. Right? Violence, you've got school shootings. You've got that example that I told you about, kids learning how to be proficient shooters.
It's true that they can try training with the video games, but there's something behind psychology that produce that feeling to kill someone. No, not the video.
So there's a book written several years ago, and it's really good. It's called On Violence by Colonel Grossman, Grossman. He was a United States colonel, and I believe he also has a PhD in psychology. And what he was talking about with the video games is that the video game technology is basically the exact same technology that the military uses to teach their soldiers how to shoot. They teach them how to shoot automatically without thinking. Right? How to make split-second decisions whether someone is innocent or an enemy. So the way that kids learn to play video games, it's exactly the same thing that the Army uses. Right? And what is the purpose of the training protocol in the military? It's so that you don't think. It's that you shoot first, think later. They had these problems in World War I, World War II, where the vast majority of soldiers were reluctant to shoot at enemy soldiers. It was something like 20 or 30% of soldiers were actually shooting to kill. The rest of them, like 70 to 80% of soldiers, were aiming over people's heads. Even when it was like Americans shooting at Germans, they were aiming over people's heads, not shooting to kill. Because it's not natural, or at least in the past, it wasn't natural to try and kill another person that you've never met before. Fast forward to Vietnam, following the new training protocols in the US military, and it's like close to 100% of soldiers are shooting to kill every time. They've gotten rid of the whole emotion. It's just completely automatic behavior. Enemy pops up, you turn around, boom, boom, boom.
So you saying that in United States, they creating a weapon as human?
No, the problem they had with training soldiers in the past was that it wasn't very effective. When soldiers would look through the sight of their weapon, through the scope, they would see another human being on the other side, and it's not natural to want to shoot another person that you've never met before and don't hate, right? Because you just see another person that looks kind of like you.
Yeah.
So only about 20% of soldiers were shooting to kill. The other ones were pretending to shoot to kill. They changed their training methods. And by the time the US got involved in Vietnam, about 100% of their soldiers, instead of 20 to 30%, were shooting to kill. They changed the training system so that people wouldn't think.
The robot just automatically shoot for killing.
Yeah, and that's what you want in a soldier.
Oh my God.
That's, if your soldier is thinking, then he's going to get killed himself.
Yeah.
You don't want that in your civilian population, right? You don't necessarily want your children using the same training system to become cold-blooded killers, but that's exactly what video games do to people. Not on purpose, it's not deliberate, that's just the side effect. It's the same training system that the military uses. Right? You want to learn to fly an airplane, get a copy of Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's the same thing. Right? You will learn to fly. If you play Flight Simulator for several months or a year and they stick you behind the controls of a real airplane, you'll be okay.
Yeah, on internet there are various methods how to make bombs and all. So now people are making bombs at home by seeing the procedure on the internet.
That's another good one that you could talk about. That's similar to a topic we had at least a month ago, but access to dangerous information online. Right? Things like the dark web, if you want to talk about that. But even you don't even need to go on the dark web to find instructions for how to make explosives. It's just commonly available. You can find instructions for how to make an A-bomb. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we've got more than enough information. Why don't we take a look at an example? Okay, there we go. The rapid development of technology has radically changed the world and led to negative impacts on both family and society at large, decreasing the amount of time that family members spend together and contributing to a more violent culture. So there's our thesis statement. Problems decreasing the amount of time that family members spend together and contributing to a more violent culture. The development of technology causes problems for the family because the time available for socializing has decreased. The main reason for this is the fact that screens are now everywhere, something that wasn't the case in the past. See, the connection to the prompt is being made very explicitly. Every family member has his or her own device, and often multiple devices, which means both an explosion in screen time and never needing to have a shared experience. According to research conducted by Pew in 2019, the amount of time that children spend in front of a screen has increased dramatically compared to 50 years ago, when television was still a relatively new phenomenon. These days, the average child spends 6 to 9 hours in front of a screen every day, leaving nearly no time for family. Moreover, when everyone now has a screen in their own room or can watch Netflix on their phone, there is no need to spend time together watching the same show. Furthermore, the content that children consume on screens these days is far more violent than it ever was, led by the development of video game technology, which has resulted in a more violent culture. So the effect on society. Compared to simple, innocent games of the past like Pac-Man and Tetris, what children play on video games is incredibly violent and realistic today. According to a report by the Canadian Centre for Social Research published in 2019, 70% of children play violent games on a daily basis. In fact, children witness hundreds of deaths on screen per day. What's worse, in the bestseller Grand Theft Auto, for example, children play a hero who steals cars, commits robberies, and murders innocent victims. According to research published in Psychiatry Today in 2018, regular exposure to such content results in a callous indifference to others' suffering. As a direct result, there has been an increase in juvenile crime as well as the seriousness of juvenile crimes. For example, incidents of children bringing guns to school happen frequently in the United States, and mass shootings are disturbingly common. Modern video games are a direct contributor to this phenomenon. Thanks to media technology, children's experience of the world is very different today compared to the past, leaving less time for family and contributing to a more violent society.
Last sentence conclusion. Here we use thanks to media technology. I thought only on the positive sides.
No.
So it's here because of media technology.
As a result of, thanks to, you can use it for negatives as well, no problem.
I thought thanks to, yeah, only like we are rewarding the media technology.
In last sentence is a sarcastic comment on, no, not like in conclusion or something.
Well, it wasn't intended to be sarcastic because you can say thanks to something negative. You can say it sarcastically, but in person, you'll be able to tell from the tone of voice. Thanks, like someone will say it like that. But this just means as a result of, thanks to media technology, right?
Okay.
All right, any questions, any comments about this? Okay, let's break it down piece by piece. Okay, so that is the assignment for today. You can go through the process on your own. You should write this one out. It has a lot of very good language. It also has a ton of complex sentences. This one has more complex sentences than a lot of the other ones that we've seen. And I did put together 3 exercises for you to practice the grammar. There's for the articles, for the conjugation, and for the complex sentences. So those are, the links are right here. These are right below the prompt itself. Okay. Do these before you do your writing. In the first one, you're just going to do the articles practice. So you're going to do definite article, indefinite article, or no article. If there's no article, you just put a dash. Conjugation, this is verbs and participles. Remember, participles are active or passive adjectives. It's like the ones that we saw today. You can think of them that way. And there's also complex sentences. There's probably, I want to say 12 or 13. There might be a couple more. Okay, and these are the structures that we've been talking about. So you've got participial phrases, active and passive, relative clauses, subordinate clauses, appositives. I believe that was it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for tonight.
Thanks a lot. Bye. Bye,
Take care.
everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye, bye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.